This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
I'm Phil McKinney, and welcome to the Garage. At the Killer Innovation Show, we're all about ideas, creativity, and innovations, and encouraging you to take the risk and change the world. This week, we're going to deviate from the normal format and jump right in with our guest this week, Peter Guber. Peter is the chairman and CEO of Mandalay Entertainment. He's the former chairman and CEO of Sony Picture Entertainment. His films have earned over $3 billion in revenue and has 50 Academy Award nominations. He's also part owner of the Golden State Warriors and LA Dodgers and involved in a wide range of professional sports. His most recent book, Tell to Win, Connect, Persuade, and Triumph with the Hidden Power of Story, went on to become the #1 New York Times bestseller. And I've asked Peter to join us and share his kind of hard-earned lessons from his success and his thinking behind stories. Stories and the ability to tell stories is critical to getting others to support your ideas and innovations, and thus why you should be keenly interested in what Peter has to say. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Phil.
So, hey, Peter, before we jump in, you and I are friends on Facebook, and we've known each other for a while. I noticed your pictures from Africa the last couple of weeks. It looks like you had a great trip.
Yeah, I've been to Africa many, many, many times, almost every year. This year, I went to Namibia, which has the Kalahari Desert and the Namib Desert, enormous deserts, and a very challenging environment there, but a remarkable way that these big animals have adapted to a very severe environment. You know, it's not anything but the lush plains of Tanzania or the watery areas of the Okavango in Botswana. This is a very Spartan, desert for as far as you can see, and how these big animals can make it is a testament to how adaptation works.
Yeah, I saw your picture on, the highest dune in Namibia. You had climbed to the top of it. Yeah, I saw that picture. It's pretty amazing. My wife and I, we actually spend most of December in Rwanda. I do for-profit investments there as a way of economic development with the Rwandan government there. So, but I've never been to Namibia.
I did a movie called Gorillas in the Mist back in the 80s.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
I forgot about that.
I spent a lot of time in Rwanda and Uganda, and so I've been there a long time.
Yeah, I just love going. We go every December. We spend pretty much the whole month there. Hey, by the way, you and I have not talked. Congratulations on winning the NBA championship. That was phenomenal. That was phenomenal. I need to say, I was actually on a cruise last week in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and your name came up. Someone on the cruise had my book and asked me to autograph it, and then they asked me if I knew you because you have the front cover quote on the cover of my book. So I was signing the book, but they were asking about you.
Well, listen, here's the thing. The idea is your value proposition, wherever you are, if it's good, follows you, and if it's bad, it follows you. So what you say and what you do, your feet, tongue, and your heart and your wallet all leave indelible imprints on the planet and people. So you hope they're good ones.
Yes. So your book, and you and I have had this conversation before, and it's the reason why I asked if you would just take the time today. And one, I want to again say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. But storytelling is so critical to innovators, and the audience for this show are people who are out there coming up with those nascent ideas and figuring out how to take them from just a raw idea to make them commercial. In many cases, those of us in the tech field and are just in the broader innovation space struggle with telling our story, with convincing others to kind of buy in. So can you kind of lay the foundation here on why, the background on the book, but more importantly, your view of the power of storytelling?
Well, it's actually quite simple. We're all wired as storytellers, story listeners, and it's the technology of language was necessary so that we could pass along the rules, values, beliefs, and statistics and tactics for success, as a species, and be able to work together to climb from the bottom of the food chain to the top of the food chain. And that remains with us. It's both a survival and success mechanism. And the reason is very simple. Information and data is really critically important. It shows proof of process. but it is neither memorable, resonant, or actionable. And to activate that and to turn it into purposefulness and to get other people to join, buy in, participate, own it, you have to narrate. You have to narrate the information in a way that people can hold on to it, and the way they hold on to it is through narrative. Through organizing the information so that it's inside of a narrative, and the narrative actually gives it emotional transportation. And it's true whether you're trying to move one person to action or a whole host of people to action, or whether you're the DA trying to convict somebody, or whether you're an entrepreneur trying to get an investor, or whether you're a developer trying to get a partner, or whether you're in any field and you want to move one or more people to action, you have to really find a way to mobilize their efforts by giving the information meaning. Human beings crave meaning. What does the information mean? It's not about the features, it's about the benefits. What is the benefit of the technology? What is the benefit of the content? What is the benefit of the information to me as an audience? And when you create that narrative that showcases that benefit, the audience not only just holds on to it and understands it and recalls it, but they can pass it along and become viral advocates for the proposition. So it's a very, very vital process, and it's hardwired into all of us. Some people abandon it in favor of just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. But unfortunately, it's a cold comfort.
So where do most people go wrong then? I mean, as you say, we're naturally storytellers, and you're saying that everybody just kind of goes to the facts. Is it the fact that we don't make that emotional linkage to kind of give it a way to be carried forward, or are there other things that that people who aren't naturally storytellers just don't get?
Well, the reason is relatively simple. That information alone is a cold comfort. You have to find a way to give that information, the data, the facts, which are critical, very important, critical important. You have to give it emotion, and because when emotion is bonded with information, the information becomes resonant, memorable, and actionable. And more importantly, or equally importantly, it can be passed along to other people in the form of that narrative. And so, what you're looking at is finding a way to give meaning to the information in a narrative, organized way. So, for example, if somebody comes up with a process to deliver blood pressure instantaneously and easy just to a person on the go every day, immediately, without having to put a cuff on, without having to do anything on, the benefit, the actual fact of that it does it and how it does it is relatively irrelevant. It functions that way. The benefit is what makes the audience love it, that it's secure, it's private, it's easily done in just a few seconds, it's immediately available to your doctor. So you've got a whole bunch of benefits. You've got a benefit of knowing the information on a much more effective, continuous basis. You know that the healthcare provider can get the information immediately. You can see a continual record of it. You become purposefully involved with tracking it and seeing effects of what you do and how it affects it. And the benefit is you have a longer, healthier life where you feel more confident in what you're doing and more secure. So you're selling security, you're selling confidence, you're servicing connection, a lot of things. You're not servicing zeros and ones. Zeros and ones don't mean anything. It's the oohs and ahs that they stand for. It's the emotional resonance that they mean. So the idea is you have to have that if you want to get the recipient, the audience that's listening to it, you want to get them to do something. Buy something, go something, own something, join some club, whatever it is. You need to find a way to create your call to action so that it is engaging emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the challenges that I've seen when I'm thinking about making an investment with an entrepreneur is they tend to want to get into, jump to the numbers kind of a thing, or just typically the facts of whatever it is, the feature set that they're trying to push. But, again, I think you've hit it right on the head with this whole concept of how do you tie that emotion into it? How do you make that, carry forward from the standpoint of transporting the real benefits versus kind of just the technical facts. And again, like I come from the geek field, right? So I'm probably the one biggest guilty of this. So we're going to stay with Peter for the next segment. And so if you're looking to learn more about ideas, creativity, and innovation, text the word innovate to 33444. If you're outside the U.S., send an email to innovate@killerinnovations.com. So stay right there. I'm Phil McKinney, and you're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalk Radio.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
I'm Phil McKinney, and welcome to Killer Innovations. Our guest today is Peter Guber. In addition to his background in movies and television, as chairman and CEO of Mandalay Entertainment, he's also the co-owner of the Golden State Warriors and LA Dodgers. Peter, we were wrapping up the last segment. You were talking about emotion as being a critical piece of storytelling. Now, I've seen good stories, and then there's just something magical about those really great stories, those ones that really hook you. Is there a unique element that differentiates good stories from great stories?
Yeah, you actually use any emotional platform to get your audience's attention and have them remember and recall the facts. Anything. You could tell a story about your kids, and you often do that. You often walk into a business room and you're talking about golf or your kids or college, creating an emotional connection, which is the palette for creating credibility and warmth and empathy between you and the people you move to action. I mean, that happens a lot. And that you can do. You don't have to be a storyteller. You just have to be alive to recognize you want to have you're not looking to make contact. You're looking to make connection, whether it's digital or whether it's in person, breathing the same air in the same room. The benefit of connecting the narrative story that you use to create that connection to something that you're trying to, that relates to something you're trying to do is, of course, the better benefit. And that means you have to do your emotional homework, not just your intellectual homework. And so you look at it and think, what is a narrative that I personally have experienced or I observed firsthand, or it's tied to a history thing that's happening in the world, or it's tied to some common event that you can use to support, if you will, become the Trojan horse for your information, data, facts, and proof of process, which will carry it into their hearts, not just their wallets or their head. I mean, you end up creating a paradigm. You're really creating a relationship, not just a transaction, because relationships trump transactions. And so the idea is, if you do your emotional homework and find a narrative that's in your life or his life or her life or their life, or that they've seen or that you've seen or some connection to it or anything that demonstrates a relationship to the information you're trying to do, it's all that better. I mean, to give you an example quickly, when Jeff Bezos, he told this story to us, when Jeff Bezos faced the dilemma one day when he saw one of his friends, I guess, as a kid, smashing all his CDs after the father bought all the CDs, apparently he got very anxious because the kid said, I don't want to schlep around the music, I just want to listen to it. And he thought, what happens if that happens to me in my book business, my hardcover book business, which I had built, hard and soft cover, the whole delivery system. What happens if they don't want to schlep that around? Which gave him the whole view of e-books. And he actually told his chief revenue officer, person that was his mainstay of his business, he said, look, I'm going to have to let you go. I'm going to fire you from your job. But and this is an apocryphal story. I'm shortening it. And he said to him, why? He said, because this whole ebook business is going to be very important. He said, well, I can do that. And there's no ebooks, but I can do that. And he said, yeah, but no, you have to be out of this job. I'm firing you from this job. If you want to do it, you're going to do it with a new job, and we're going to have you're going to have only be able to take one of our group to it, and you're going to have to go and kick the crap out of our own competition, the thing you built. And he said, well, I don't get that. He said, well, I'm going to burn the boats for you. And whereupon Bezos told the story of Cortez, who landed on the coast of South America with this small army of 80 men, all with horses and armament, but faced a 2,000 armed force of indigenous people there. And these soldiers got anxious and started to retreat. So what did Cortez do? He burned the boats. So as Bezos said, I'm burning the boats for you. I'm making you. There is no retreat. You either do this or you're not here. So you use stories, and that story became, apparently a legend. But you use narratives to make the case for what you want people to do in an emotional setting. Now, he could have just had a whole different discussion, something about staying the course and other emotional factors, and it could have served it, pretty well. But having a narrative that actually relates to the call to action that you want the other party to do, buy my product, join my company, become an investor, participate in this business, whatever you want them that if you can align the narrative to the purposefulness of what you want the action to be, all the better.
Yeah, I think, in fact, there's been a couple of articles on what you brought. I think it was with the Dodgers, at treating kind of how do you do that whole emotional narrative from the time someone actually is thinking about buying the ticket all the way through the experience. So your definition of an audience literally applies to anything. It isn't like you use the word audience, we kind of get a mental model of that. But in this case, you've been quite successful at applying it even to the work at the Dodgers, correct?
Well, you're really right on. It's in order to not have it on the wrong syllable, you have to understand that the conceit is that, and this is really the truth, is that when you look at somebody and you're trying to move them to action, or a group of somebody's, if you start looking at them as customers, they protect their groin and their wallet. You're aiming for a transaction. When you give them a narrative, you're aiming at their heart, and that's where hits are born, especially emotional hits. And when you do that, you're really supporting relationship over transaction. And relationship does trump transaction, because oftentimes the facts or the information or the data or may not support what the person wants and such. But if your approach is compelling and connecting and emotionally resonant, you build a relationship with this person. Next time you go into the room or call them on the phone or send them a text, they have a different resonance about you. They feel you get them, and so it's a very important tool, a long-term tool, a long-term investment, if you will, in the connection, not the contact, between potential buyers and sellers, partners, colleagues, even media, financial people, and even competitors. Because the idea is when something is compelling emotionally, it changes just having the attention, you're getting their attention into converting them to intention, and that's the call to action.
Yeah, I think that's an important part, right? It's people are much more willing to connect and be part of it from an emotional standpoint versus the automatic, suspect on the message being delivered if I don't have that hook. And that hook, though, is very unique to each individual customer or audiences that you're talking about, whether in your case...
That's a very important point, because what you really have to say when you're dealing with the recipient of your narrative, the recipient of your call to action, you have to be audience-centric. You have to think of what's in it for me, not you, them. If you can't think of what's in it for me, if you can't understand the benefit for them, you'll never ever move
Peter.
them.
Exactly, Peter. So we're going to hold it right here. We're going to be right back. We'll be right back, Killer Innovations, here on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalk Radio. This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back as we continue our discussions with Peter Guber. Hey, Peter, as we were wrapping up in the last segment, we were talking about audience. But sometimes the challenge is do you really know the audience? And given, your career, storytelling being kind of the cornerstone for that, have you ever been surprised about a story that you thought was great, but others just didn't get it?
How about all the time? It's called the movie business, and what they call that, when that happens in the movie business, they call that a flop. So the idea is, wouldn't that be a great strategy, Phil? Oh, I get it. Just make hits. Why didn't I think of that? Of course you'd have that. But it's like you drive on the right side of the street, the right-hand side of the street, and stay to the right of the yellow line in the middle because you believe that's the best place to do. But accidents happen there. All kinds of things happen there. Uncertainty happens there. Sometimes you drive over on the left just to get by somebody. So the idea is this is an approach that has very little risk. I mean, very little risk. And a great deal of reward. There's big treasures, and there are some time bombs. Sometimes you tell the wrong story, but that's true all the time. But there's no real catastrophic risk. You're never prevented from leaving a deck and all the information in it. You're never prevented from that. But if I told you how few people, the leaders and managers, if I told you how few people actually read the deck, especially all the deep text in the deck, you'd be overwhelmingly shocked. Because here's what the CEO or the COO says to his people when he comes back. Yeah, I got all that. Now, what does it mean? That's what they ask. What does it mean? It means if we do this, we can improve our margin by 9%. It means if we do this, we open up a new whole market where the audience and the potential economic rewards are tenfold. I mean, you're telling them the meaning and the benefit, but the idea of how you move them to action, because they often have to move that information and their intention of what to do to other people as well, is by using the narrative, they pay the thing forward with the story. And that is the super magic, because the truth is our whole culture, our entire human society was built on this premise. Way before these zeros and ones, it was the yous and ahs around the campfire that allowed the important information for this written language to get passed along for our survival, so we could learn to work together, the tactics and everything. And that is still with us today. So the conceit of recognizing that moving people to action by creating a narrative isn't something I invented. I'm not the author of it. I'm the benefactor of it. And all I'm doing is saying, look, this is a resource and a tool with your resourcefulness that can provide, nuclear propulsion to your aptitude. It's the attitude that moves the aptitude. And I think it's a game changer. And the idea that you can know a lot about your own people if they're just firing bullets away of information, they don't really get what's going on. They don't really get that it's the benefit that has to be projected to your potential audience who want to take action. They don't really get what activates people to own not the narrative but the content in the narrative. And if they don't do that, they're not going to have a good batting average. They may get a hit occasionally, and the information may be so compelling that the audience can see what's in it for them. But why not shine the light on that benefit to your audience? And why not shine it in a way that they can pay it forward to other people as evangelizers and advocates for the proposition? So that's what you're really talking about here.
So if you were to give the audience, one or two kind of things that they could start working on right now, what would those be?
I would say never go into a room, make a digital connection, send an email or a written commentary where you want somebody to do something, where you want them to join you, invest in your product, become a proselytizer for your products or processes, whatever it is, one or many people, unless you first understand who your audience is, who they are, and what is in it for them to own this. What's in it for them? What's the benefit to them? And how you understand that is how you can connect with them. Never go into a room or make a proposition in writing or verbally or orally or anything unless you understand what your goal is. What is it that you want them to do? Do you know how many people come into my room? Major people will come into my office room on my phone, and I wait for 3 minutes, 5 minutes to find out what do they really want. Okay, what are you here for? They don't even know what their goal is. If they're hiding their goal, I'm never going to trust them. They got to pride their goal. They got to think it's a real value proposition. And so I think that's important. That should be a very key element of in it. And then in the engagement with people, activate, engage them physically, emotionally, intellectually. And that is part of the process. Audiences, and that means customers, audiences, buying people or selling people, they want to be participants in today's world, not passengers. And your job is to make them active in your narrative. So that's my best advice.
That's great. In fact, on the goal piece, one of the things I've noticed, Peter, in your career is it seems like partnerships have played an important role for all of your activities. The partnerships with the part ownerships in the sports teams, the partnerships in the, Columbia, Sony Pictures, and then the forming of Mandalay Bay. Am I reading that right? Would you say that partnerships?
Yeah, well, I believe in relationship capital. I believe it's an incredible capital. Relationships trump transactions. Relationships are enduring. They're not one-time things. You may not, hit the ball over the fence. You may not get them to buy your product. You may not get them to invest in your business. You may not get them to support your endeavor. But when you build a relationship, you have many times at bat, using a mixed metaphor. You have many times that you can come back to it because it creates the most important thing, trust. It creates trust. Trust is the foundation of a relationship. And so the idea is when you're in business, you're in the relationship business, whether it's a partner or what you call a customer or what I call an audience or what we call a buyer or a seller or what we call a participant or what we call even an employee. When they look at that way, the process has so many more resonant elements to it that can work for you, both now and in the future. And so the idea is whatever happens to that transaction, that's not the end of the relationship. And that's really important.
So what do you look for in a partner? I mean, I've had some bad experiences early in my career trying to do partnerships and them not quite turning out how I had expected them to be. So you've had a lot of success with a wide range and number of partners. What's your trick? What is it you look for in a partner?
Behavior. Like everybody, you can't just make hits. So the idea is, think of it this way. When you look for a partner, you have to, don't try to make it 50-50. Don't try to cut it so tight. Recognize that sometimes you'll get what turns out to be a larger benefit, and sometimes she'll get to be what's a larger benefit. But you're in a process, not just a transaction. And if you trust that over time that each of you will do what's best for the partnership, the fact that you got a little less, a little more, you shouldn't be measuring it all the time. You should have a co-joined view of what you want to accomplish. You have to look how you pitch and catch. And you have to recognize that each of the partners have to be heard. You have to be heard, and she or he has to be heard. So that if you have what you look for, people who are empathetic, who are good communicators, who are good listeners, which is very important, who are not risk averse, very important because all entrepreneurship and leadership requires risk, not risk averse. You look for an alignment of intention. You look at their track record, not just success or failure, but how they managed other relationships. You're not going to change somebody who's had 5 bad relationships and 3 lawsuits just because you made a deal with them. Their behavior is not going to change. Look at the direction of their feet, tongue, heart, and wallet and see if they're going the same direction. If they are, you're looking at somebody that might be a good partner.
Oh, that is great. That's great. Peter, I just want to thank you again for coming and spending this time with us. This has been immensely valuable. One, for me personally, but the audience gets to kind of, look over our shoulder and listen into the conversation. And I want to also thank you for the support you've given me over the last 3 or 4 years after we first met and the support you gave me on my book. It does mean a lot. If people want to follow what you're doing, where can they find you?
If they want to follow me, they want, they can find me. And if they can't find me, they shouldn't be following me.
That's a good point, Peter. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Stay tuned. We got Killer Question coming up next. I'm Phil McKinney. This is Killer Innovations. You're listening to the BizTalk Radio Network.
The opinions you hear on Biz Talk Radio are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of this station, Biz Talk Radio, its management, or advertisers. The information on Biz Talk Radio does not constitute a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or service. If you have any questions about Biz Talk Radio, contact us at 817-274-1609 or at biztalkradio.com. Biz Talk Radio.